welcome. Hi. Thanks for joining. We'll give people a couple of minutes just to join now, but in the meantime, feel free to grab a drink and yeah, we'll begin shortly. Hi.
Hello.
Okay, I think we can make a start. So thank you so much for joining, everyone. Whilst we're waiting for other people to kind of trickle in, a quick couple of notes and an introduction from my side. So right before we start, we can see everything that you put in the chat, hi, but other attendees can't. So there's no such thing as silly questions. Please ask along as we go. This is meant to be much more of a conversational type of webinar. So yeah, please feel free to put your questions in as we go. But if we don't get to your questions live, we'll make sure to give you a follow-up via email immediately after. Okay. So quick introduction from my side. Hi, I'm Annie. I've been in the consultancy world for just shy of 2.5 years now. Before that, I was working for a large ERP company, but I'm not promoting anything, no free promo for anybody. So I've spent the majority of my career kind of around the planning processes, meaning that I understand what works, what doesn't necessarily work, and the common themes that we see people struggling with. So a lot of what we're going to be sharing today comes from that background, as well as from the background of Jess and Dale, who will be our experts today, and just seeing how different businesses approach planning and the kind of challenges that tend to come up time and time again. Okay. So really quickly, this is what we'll be talking through today. So we'll do a quick overview of BIOS management just to set the scene of who we are in case you guys don't know us. We'll discuss current S&OP, the current S&OP landscape and what organizations are currently dealing with. We'll also discuss the key enablers that strengthen an S&OP process. And then we'll start having a look at what modernized planning looks like in practice and the value that companies are seeing from it. Then we'll wrap up with a quick Q&A at the end. So please, again, do keep those questions coming throughout the session. And for those who have just joined us, just another quick note, no one apart from us can see the questions that you're adding in. So please feel free to go along, okay? Okay, so about BIOS management. So for those of you who may not know us, we're a boutique consultancy with over 20 years of experience of helping organizations improve performance through stronger processes, better data, and practical digital solutions. We're a team of over 250 people globally and have delivered more than 1,800 projects across 600 customers. I like numbers, so it's quite impressive if we do say so ourselves. Always lovely to see. So what we do is we combine advisory, analytics, and digital implementation kind of under one roof. So instead of you going to one consultancy or one implementation partner for one thing and then advisory for another thing, we keep everything in-house. So we stay with our customers until their solutions actually work for them the way that they need it to work for them. Okay. So our customers, again, I'm a big numbers girl, so it's always really nice to see that we work across so many different industries. And actually, we're not just limited to these industries. We've got customers all in all different parts. So across all of these sectors, planning challenges tend to look similar. So things like fragmented data, disconnected teams, manual processes, and the continuous pressure to always make better decisions, but more accurate decisions whilst also doing it faster. It's an constant theme. I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, have handled these issues once or twice, if not more. So today we'll be looking at how organizations are addressing these challenges in a practical and structured way, focusing primarily on supply chain and sales and operations planning. Okay, quick intro into Dale and Jess. I'm going to hand you over to Dale and Jess, who will be our experts today. They'll take you through the key insights, examples, approaches that we're seeing really work for other people and the market. So Dale and Jess, over to you guys.
Okay. Yeah, thank you everyone, and welcome to this webinar. So yeah, just a little bit about me. So I've worked in supply chain for over 15-16 years now, and I'm quite new into the technology landscape in regards to consultancy. I've worked in organizations predominantly in the supply chain, but predominantly specializing in IBP and S&OP and building it really from the ground up. And along those lines, many of you on the call today has gone through the S&OP or IBP journey of building, a robust process within a business, and it always concentrates on people and process, and the way the Oliver White methodology is always targeting get the people and the process aligned. But over the last 5 years, I've really been targeting sort of the technology landscape of how do we improve IBP and S&OP through technology. And it's really driven me on the journey of where I am today and exploring the solutions that's around it to really supercharge that ability to implement these processes. So, and that's what we'll talk about a little bit today is to go through one solution that we work with and help organizations, really evolve their standard people and process based IBP processes. To you, Jess.
Nice, thanks, Dale. Hi, everyone. I'm Jess. I'm a senior consultant at BIOS. And like Dale, I've come from industry. So this is my first consulting role. And predominantly my experience has been across lots of different sectors. So I've worked in merchandising, so in fashion retail, also in various manufacturing settings across different industries. My experience generally lies in forecasting, demand planning, and then the wider S&OP IBP process as well later on in my career. And I've moved over into consulting from industry because I saw firsthand the impact that technology could have on a process, and more importantly for me, on the people who carry out that process. So I was that planner on the ground. I managed a team of planners, and we faced a lot of the problems that we'll talk about today. And we're able to address some of those with technology. So yeah, excited to show you all a little bit about how we would go about doing that.
Perfect. Thank you, Jess. So today's going to be split into a few different things. We'll have some polls, so interactive polls that people can ask some questions on, or answer some of the questions that we have in the polls. We'll obviously send that information out then after the webinar of the interesting topics that are brought up in there. Any questions that are raised in the chat, again, we'll try our best to answer them later on in the webinar. And again, any questions we can't answer, as mentioned, we'll send out answers later on. And yeah, we have a mix of some static slides to go through, but we also have some videos of the solution in action where we show you the problems that they go through. So yeah, some exciting stuff to go through today. So I'll just move on. So the day in the life of supply chain. So a lot of you here, supply chain experts, have probably seen many of these questions that get directed your way. So why is there two plans? Supply planner. When are we going to ship this customer's order? It's urgent. What's the long-term forecast? Why is our obsolete stock growing? Questions like these always keep coming in all the time. And it's really difficult to answer a lot of these questions in today's landscape. Now, to link it all together, you have sales sort of shouting down the phone, when is an urgent order shipping? At the same time, you have a supply planner looking at the data, asking, why are there two different plans? While procurement at the same time, they're quite frustrated because the forecast for them keeps changing or shifting. That's just your morning that's just your morning session on day one of the week. Later on in the afternoon, then you've got the financial teams. Then the pressure hits you as a supply chain leader. So finance want to know why obsolete stock is creeping up. The inventory manager, they're always asking, well, why did you buy so much raw material in the first place? What are you going to do with that? What's going to happen with that? And then you've got the leadership team stepping in, asking why the demand plan doesn't really match the budget targets. So you've got all these different questions coming in. The strategic curveballs come in. Marketing, you decide to launch a new product next week without checking your supply capacity. CCO, worried about a major customer potentially moving away from a competitor. And then you've got your chief supply chain officer. They drop the big question: what happens if one of our main suppliers go bust? They don't really ask that question unless there's something on the horizon. So it's these questions are, something that a lot of supply chain people face and need to try and answer and get all that data compiled for the leadership team. Now, you're not really a supply chain at that point. You're just fighting fires. And the problem really isn't that these are bad questions. They are all valid for a business to successfully manage. And again, you need to try and answer these as fast as you can to be able to get that data to you. But that's the problem. Answering those questions usually involves sort of 3 days of spreadsheet wrestling. And by the time you've done that, really the question's changed. The answer is irrelevant because the business has moved on. World landscape has moved on because the world is so volatile at the moment. Now, any other questions you guys have faced or any really difficult ones, maybe add to the chat and we'll see if we can link up some of those to your answers later on when we're going through the presentation. And we're also launching our first poll as well. So that will go live now. But that leads me on to the next element then of this pack. So we talked about disrupting questions in supply chain, but let's look at some actual problems. So we have all learned in school that sort of fires need 3 elements to survive: fuel, oxygen, and heat. And if you have all 3, you have that blaze. Okay. Now, if you remove one, the fire dies. Now, I see the exact sort of dynamic thing in dynamic supply chain. Now, while you look at the 3 different elements, the 3 different taxes that I've highlighted around that, around the burning fire there, you've got the data silos, the disconnected tools, and the manual bottlenecks. In a sense, this is your fuel. This is the dry wood stacking up in your organization. So as long as these manual processes exist, you're flammable. Yeah, you're just waiting for that spark to sort of ignite that fire and cause that issue. And in this current day and age, that heat always finds you in supply chain. So there's no way of avoiding it. Now, skipping on. Now, first, you get the initial heat source, okay? The macro shocks, the tariff increases, the production line goes down, or customer sort of pulls out. That temperature rises quite considerably, quite fast. Secondly, then comes the sustained pressure that keeps hitting you. So you've got the new regulations, supply shortages, cost increases. This keeps that heat pretty high. Then you've got, finally, add that oxygen to the mix. The chaos that fans the flame. These are the viral trends that can impact your business. So whether that's customer changes or finance demand budget version 10, or a spike in social media is jumped up your demand overnight, and it's hard to control. But then that's not all we face in today's age. You try to get all this done, you manage to get it all pulled together, and then your spreadsheet is corrupt. So that happens way too often, especially as our manual databases are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I've been working at a spreadsheet that has hit 100 megabyte in size, and Microsoft only advise 25 meg and you're in line for corruption. So these files are always a ticking time bomb. Now, the lesson here is quite simple, right? You cannot control the heat or the oxygen. The market will always be volatile, especially in today's age where things move so quickly. But what you can do is remove that fuel. And if we fix the data silos, we fix the manual processes, and sparks can land, that fire doesn't really start because we're a lot more, a lot more aligned to what's happening. Now, that leads me on to a big question of today is, how do we deal with the complexity of managing a supply chain in today's disrupted world? And to answer that, and again, when we go through the solution now of how this question could be answered, really it boils down to replacing reactivity with proactivity, making sure you have everything in line, because look, you can't avoid these disruptions to your supply chain. You can't avoid these issues within your business, but what you can be is ready for it. And that's what we'll hopefully show you today, is some solutions where your business can adopt and be ready for these disruptions that hit you. So what we'll do, I'll hand you over to Jess. Jess will talk about the solutions. She'll go through some of the slides and show you some of the videos of the solution in action. So,
thanks, Dale. Thanks. And I mean, yeah, we know that these things that are coming and adding fuel to our fire aren't going anywhere. And if anything, the way the market is and how volatile it's been probably since COVID, all of the huge macroeconomic events which has happened since then, we just need to learn how to be proactive, anticipate these, move from having one plan to being ready with a few plans, which maybe we're not as certain about, but I think that's better than having one plan that we think we're certain of, because one thing you can be certain of is that it won't be the right plan that you go with. Okay. Ooh, thanks, Phil.
Yeah,
and talk about disruption. Pardon?
I was going to say, Jess, and just to reiterate as well, there's 4 things that Jess really is going to go through in these packs today as well, right? So it's to talk about the issues. We will show you one unified platform that connects all these data sources, right? An efficient and automated presentation creation. So a lot of businesses and a lot of use cases that I've worked with building IBP processes up, is that some businesses have had over 100 PowerPoint slides in their presentation. Now, when you think about how much effort it takes to update, and this is just for an MBR, by the way, you've got all the supply reviews and demand reviews that also take place. There's hundreds of PowerPoint presentation slides that get updated. We'll show you a way of how that is now automated, in a sense where it links up live data, and you can really streamline that down into a lot less slides, while also having a dynamic ability to navigate that presentation when questions are asked. We'll show you some scenario planning and how we can improve the speed of that by up to 90% from manual comparisons. And we'll also then show you the end result of when you have all these actions pulled together and you have these decisions made at the end, how do you link all this together and get them closed down pretty quickly? So over to you then, Jess, and we'll show you on, and this will open up the second poll as well of the webinar.
Yeah, nice. So in this poll, we just want to hear about what you think could potentially impact your businesses the most, because obviously all of these would be nice, but even having one of these things helps massively. So let's get into some real life examples then. Let me just flick to the next slide. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is data. So having centralized data warehouse that you are pulling from all teams and departments across the supply chain. So it sounds like a really simple thing. I think often we think when we talk about technology enabling S&OP, IBP, we think of these really sophisticated AI models. And of course, they are brilliant when you've got the right data, but sometimes it is the simplest things that have a really big impact. It's often a really good place to start as well. So using a solution like this, so in this example, we're showing the board solution. You tend to then have data from all departments being fed from one source, which obviously eliminates all of the spreadsheets and all of the manual time, copying and pasting different reports, each monthly cycle going through the same reports and updating them. Brilliant. That's going to save you lots of time. But also, how many times have we been in meetings where you've gone in, you've pulled up your screen and you're presenting your numbers, and someone said, I don't recognize that number. Cancel the meeting, reschedule for next week, go and tell me where you got these numbers from, do the analysis, why this Teams is different. We've all been there a million times. So it's a really basic thing, but a huge advantage to having a solution where all the teams and departments are working from one data source. And what we've got, which I'll just flick through now as well, is just some examples of some tailored dashboards to different roles within supply chain. So you've really got flexibility within a platform like this, so you can create lots of different dashboards customized to different roles, so it wouldn't have to be just what you see here. But for example, this one on the screen now is for a product manager. They're coming in and they can look at their product family revenue versus budget and manage by exception as well, which is obviously what we always want to do when we're creating dashboards, creating actionable insights and drawing that attention to where it's needed most. So we've also got some examples from your demand management manager can come in and see their consensus forecast versus budget. We've also got then a procurement specialist can come in and look at their suppliers and how they're performing against various KPIs. And then you get the idea, but we've also got screens for supply managers with rough cut capacity analysis, highlighting those exceptions. So lots and lots of ways of how you can customize to make sure that everyone's got what they need to do their jobs, but essentially it's all pulling from the same data source. So eliminating that, mismatch of data and creating that single source of truth. And another very simple but very value add element of having all your data in one place is that it's very easy to financialize supply chain data, which often, as we know historically, you might look at data in an S&OP meeting in just volumetric terms, and it's very hard to make decisions then. So it sounds very simple, but I think there's a lot of companies still out there who struggle to do this volume to value integration. So we've just got some examples, some screenshots here of some dashboards that you could create. So where you can look at the financial impact of some scenarios here, which we'll go into a little bit more detail later on with a video. We've also got your financial reconciliation, your P&L, looking at variances against different scenarios last year, budget. So really enabling that financial integration with your supply chain, because it can often be really disconnected, and it's a huge benefit to a business if you can bring finance on board and have a synchronicity between supply chain and finance.
Yeah. And one thing to note as well, a lot of the things you see here, these are completely configurable and tailored to your business. They're not a lot of solutions out there these days are a cookie cutter approach that tries to force your business down the same structure of their solution. This plays with the opposite. We tailor that solution around your business. So what your business is used to seeing and what they're used to presenting is what is presented and built within this solution that then automates.
Yeah, definitely. And I can see the answers to the polls coming in as well. And right now, I mean, we'll publish the results afterwards and let you all know. But a unified platform connecting finance and operations is 50% of the results. So we totally agree that you can see huge value by driving this.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. And then a second point, which relates to having all your, having your process all in one place. So moving from data to having process orchestration all in one platform, I think is often something that's overlooked as adding real value. I think we tend to having the data from one source of truth is maybe an obvious one, but having an automated process orchestration and process governance within technology and enabling that is a huge time saver. For one, I mean, I've personally been there running an IBP process and having to chase everyone. Can I start my part of the process? My deadline's coming up, but I haven't had my numbers yet from finance, so I can't do my bit of the pack. And we've all been there, and it can be really, really stressful. And also, you have people in your teams then, that's not value add work, chasers, emails, trying to see where we are in the process and not having that visibility can really slow down the cycle. And in today's environment, I think we're trying to get around this IBP workflow quicker because we often need to. I know some businesses work on a monthly cadence through this, some, on a fortnightly, some on a weekly, because that's how quick demand is changing, the market is changing. So that becomes even more important if you want to speed up this process flow. So you can see here, typically, a standard IBP process. So you want to move from product portfolio review to demand review into supply, and then into your S&OP. And that there can be a lot of stakeholders in that process, as we know, for those who have worked in it, and it's really hard to organize that. And I think, yeah, having it all in a technology, what you can see here is just some screenshots of how you can set that within a solution like Board. So it's really customizable, again, like the dashboard. So you could set up a workflow where you have specific permissions for different roles, even different users. So if you're in an industry or your process needs to be really, really slick and you need a lot of governance around who's approving things when, audit tracing, all of that kind of thing, it enables that very easily. And I think one thing as well, if I could, as a demand planner in a previous life, go in and see all of the steps that maybe someone from a different department needs to complete, I'd have a lot more, I guess, understanding if I'm waiting on someone. I think it really helps with that departmental understanding of the process as well. And it's really good for onboarding, training, and drilling in that process governance and keeping control within your supply chain.
Yeah, and to add to that as well, we're always sort of taught when we're incorporating IBP is that people and process needs to be done first before we look at technology. But with today's tools, it really enhances that, because now it allows you to force in best practice into the workflows and allow those to be carried out while then enhancing the process element of IBP. So you sort of force in the workflows and the elements that need to be completed to flow to the next review, before that is done. So it really streamlines the sort of the knowledge, but also the flow within your business of the understanding of how things flow end to end as well. So it's really important as well that these solutions don't need to come in after the people and process is done fully. You also be used to enhance that people and process element of this structure.
Yeah, definitely do. Okay, I'm pretty sure now, yeah, I'm going to show you some videos of this software in action. So we've got a few videos coming up, a few areas which we wanted to focus on today, of how technology is enabling this example S&OP process. So the first one we're going to talk about is this presentation feature within Board, which we'll be showing. So it essentially gets rid of your PowerPoint decks. It replaces that with dashboards, which are in a slide configuration, which you can then go in, add your commentary for this specific month, but you're not updating every month. And these can be completely customized and configured to, your business KPIs, the important metrics that you talk about in these meetings. So I don't think I need to tell you how much of a time saver that's going to be, not having to build PowerPoint presentations every month. Again, working back to your cadence and your process flow as well, meaning you could definitely shorten that, because often the bottleneck is actually just putting it all into decks, which is crazy. And it's great as well. So I'll show you another benefit now as we get into the demo of having this. Let's test my technology skills by pulling up this video, and hopefully it all works. Okie doke. And let me just pop to the start. Okay. So what you can see here is a typical product review example. This slide focuses on revenue, so we'll go through a few different examples across the IBP cycle, so the product, demand, supply. And what I really want to show you guys is how having this within the presentation feature, within a solution rather than in a presentation, makes it interactive. So one of the features of Board is the drill down. So what I can see here is, okay, I'm looking at my variance of revenue at a specific product family. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this variance at gravel. So this is bikes, by the way, for this example. So I'm in my meeting and someone's questioning, why is my variance on gravel so high, my variance to budget? So what's driving that? What product is that? I need to know now. Typically, you might if you've done your preparation, you should know, but maybe sometimes you don't know and you're like, and luckily this will stop that from happening, because you can go straight in, as you can see here. So I've used the drill down function. I've said I want to look at it by product. I can look at that data in many different ways as well, not just in this one way. And then I can basically sort my variance from high to low. So I can, or adding something to the action log, as we always do, we've straight away addressed the question and we can have those meaningful conversations. So I'm going to show a few examples like this. So this one here, we're in a demand review. I can see my consensus forecast versus my budget. I can highlight so I can see where the big variances are by product family. And I'm going to hone in on this NAPE. So my forecast accuracy looks really high on electric bikes. Why is that? I'm going to look at that by channel. And maybe from this, then I can get some actions to the regional manager, the channel manager who's in this meeting. I can say, okay, your forecast accuracy is driving this really high error. Please, can we go away and look at this so you can put that action on it? Because it might not be that it's a suitable thing to start going into in this meeting, but you straight away know the root cause. And I think enabling that root cause analysis in a meeting rather than having to go away is really, really powerful. So that's just another example there of what we might want to do while we're in presentation mode and in a meeting. So another example, we're in a supply review and I can see I've got products out of stock. We want to know where that is, what products are they? We might want to look at it, at product level, because we might need to put some urgent actions on this. So we're going to look straight away. I can see here are my out of stock products. I might even want to say, okay, my top out of stock product, what locations are they out of stock? We might have some really core locations, some strategic fulfillment centers that we never want to be out of stock of. So I might want to see that straight away. I can come in and see it in real time. So really, really powerful, I think, for anyone who's been in the situation where you're presenting and you've got questions from leadership. Why is that? Rightfully so. It just allows you to get those answers straight away and have really meaningful conversations and make data-driven decisions as well. So another example here is our rough cut capacity analysis. So I'm looking at a specific manufacturing site. So say, for example, we've had a conversation and someone's come to the meeting. We didn't have pre-notification of this, as you often don't, and you get into the meeting and you get blindsided, or something has happened literally 2 minutes before the call and our supplier one has got huge problems. Something's gone wrong with the factory. They've got lines down, resource problems, whatever it may be. And we want to affect to know straight away what products into notification that I might have dropped connection.
Yeah, you're just loading back in, Jess.
Yeah, I just jumped off. Apologies, I'm not sure what happened there. Technology these days. But this example, essentially, we're going to look at our supplier, and maybe we've had the news that they have a production line down and they've got resourcing problems, and we want to know, how is this going to affect our business? What product families, in this case on the screen right now, are affected? So I can say, okay, my electric bikes, all of our products are manufactured with this supplier, so that's going to be a huge problem for me. I might want to go in and drill down further and see exactly what products are in there. I might then be able to, I might have an action straight from this meeting for that specific supply planner or procurement specialist to go and look at this. So it just really unlocks, the amount of conversation you can have and the amount of detail you can go into. Maybe it's not always what you want to do in that meeting, but I think I've personally been in a lot of situations where we've held up meetings or stopped meetings because they don't want to continue until you can get that level of detail or know where to focus. So there's a few more examples there of just different screens that you could have in presentation mode. So hopefully we didn't cut off too much there. We didn't lose too much.
Not too much.
That's good. Apologies. It wouldn't be a supply chain webinar without some disruptions, would it? So brilliant. Okay. So I'm going to move into a next video now, which we're going to look at some scenario planning functionality. Dale, do you have anything you want to add before I move into that?
No, just to reiterate that the speed of this takes. So, you know, yourself, Jess, has said, you know, you've been working on, you know, demand and IBP meetings and pulling this deck together. Likewise for myself, multiple times. The amount of PowerPoint slides I've probably built, probably in the thousands, right? But yeah, these are the things that really add that efficiency in, because they get updated with the live data, as you've mentioned, every single time you need to present this. And to add to the like summary text that you see there as well, there's also options then to add that, you know, what people say the AI element in then, where you can get that text, you know, done through and link it up to an LLM and have that text automatically generated for your, I guess, summary points. You know, some businesses don't want that. Some businesses like to have that, you know, make sure that their team members are going in and reviewing this before they create the summary, so they at least understand the data, which makes sense. But again, if needed, you can get AI to also build, you know, summary points within the data you're seeing here as well. Okay, Jess.
Thanks, Dale. I'm actually just going to try and switch over my Wi-Fi, I think, because I keep dropping off. Apologies.
Just 2 seconds for it to come back. Yeah.
Hello. Apologies. Hopefully this will be a better connection. It's just typical. Okay, let's get into scenario planning.
And to add, Jess, I was very proactive. You know, reactively, you connect with the drops.
Of course, I'm used to this. I'm a supply chain professional. Okay, so I think we talk a lot about scenario planning in supply chain today. I think it's been like a huge topic, a huge buzzword in the industry for the past, you know, maybe 5 years even. And I think a lot of the time people do scenario planning, or we say we do scenario planning, but we do it at a aggregated level, or we are disconnected. I think it's very rare and very difficult to achieve connected scenario planning across the supply chain, and then being able to aggregate that and make a business decision based on ultimately our operating profit. So one of the things which I think is unique to the solution we're going to show you now is that the scenario planning and the levers that you can pull happen at that very granular level. So you can be editing volumes by month at a specific product. You can then go through and see the impact on your supply plan. Do we have supplier availability? Do we have capacity to fulfill this additional demand? And then we will be able to see that impact all the way across to the P&L and see that financial impact to make that decision, and not just at a revenue basis, because I think a lot of the time we make these decisions based on revenue alone and find it really hard to financialize that supply chain data down to operating profit, which is obviously ultimately where we should be making that decision. And I've seen that firsthand in my experience. So I'll go ahead and play this video and just show you some examples of how we do this. So what you can see at the moment is we're in demand planning scenario, and this is a tailored dashboard to review certain scenarios against each other. So I can see it by product family, by region. I can see the same thing in revenue. So all of these could be customizable. But then I've also got the detail as well. So you've got the option of having both an aggregated view and detail. So in this example that we're going to talk through, I can see I've got a few test plans here versus my working plan. And I'm going to change some values, and I'm going to amend some volumes in my test plan 1. So let's say we've got a new customer on board it, and yeah, our volumes are going to go up from February. As you can see, I can manually type into the software and update those, and I'm just going to save that. And then one of the really cool features about Board as well is that right now I'm doing it at product family level and by month, but I can use the drill down function, which you can see here, and look at that by customer and amend it specifically by customer. What it will do though, if I'm doing it at the more aggregated level, it will then proportionately distribute those volumes across my customers based on previous patterns. So really intelligent stuff, takes out all of that disaggregation work, which I would usually be doing as a forecaster, and trying to distribute that. And it does it for you. But equally, I still have the flexibility to go in and update it by customer as well. So full flexibility. And what I might do now is I've gone away, I've reviewed these in my dashboards, had some conversations, and we're saying, okay, I want to make this the working plan now. So I've made my scenario, I've reviewed it, I've had the go ahead, and I'm then going to update my working plan to reflect those new volumes, which I'm doing here now. So as you can see, that's been replicated. So this is in the demand section. Just an example of how you've got that flexibility to scenario plan. That's obviously at volume and product family level. But what I can do then, having all the different modules within a system like this, is I can go into my inventory and distribution planning, my supply planning, and then view these scenarios and look at the impact from a supply perspective. So we can see here we've got lots of key metrics that I want to see. So my cost, my margin. I can also compare the different test plans in various different ways. And I can see what my procurement levels would be, what my target stock levels would be. I mean, you can literally build any meaningful KPIs in here, which will help you analyze and make those decisions. But one of the things you can also do here now in supply planning is I can create my own scenarios. So I might want to change my reorder frequency and see how that affects my stock or my target service levels. So nice engines in the background of this solution are doing all the complex calculations and taking away hours of work there. And once I've done that and run a scenario, I can come into my review screen and look at the detail as well, because to my earlier point, often we're doing these at aggregated levels and we can't really see the impact, and we're making decisions based on guesswork a lot of the time. And then further down the line, you've committed to a scenario, you get there, turns out we don't have enough capacity, or this was a major issue which we didn't have sight of. So in this example, which we can see on the screen right now, you can see how it'll affect your target stocks at different locations for each product family. Or in the next tab then as well, I can look at my capacity utilization. And this can really be built out in lots of different ways, but just some examples of how scenario planning is really embedded in solutions like this and how that can massively help your processes. And then it wouldn't be real scenario planning if we're not pushing that through S&OP. So we should be having our demand review, our supply reviews, looking at it in more detail. But then, of course, leadership in the business need to make decisions and understand how it's going to affect our operating profit. And we need to see this at an aggregated level, but still have the confidence that it's linked to our aggregated plans. So what you can see here then in your S&OP meeting pack, we've got a scenario comparison screen. So once they've gone through the whole process and we've had our demand and supply planners verify these scenarios, we can then see the real impact. So you can see the P&L there on the right-hand corner. We can see what the operating profit would be for each of these. And you can even click into the scenario like we've done here and see all the detail. If you need it, what are the changes? What have we really done? But it's just all connected. It's so much easier having technology enable this, because I think this is hours and hours of work normally, and you still don't get it right. To get it connected like that, I'm not sure Excel could even cope with that, or you definitely have the spreadsheet is corrupt problem and be crossing your fingers every time you open that spreadsheet. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a flavor for the kind of scenario planning you can do and the benefits of having it all in a solution.
Yeah, but one case we've seen this work right very quickly is that, as mentioned earlier, right, the commercial officer has said, "Oh, we've got our best customers potentially going to move to our competitor." Okay, so we were able to run the analysis through the solution on that. What was the impact? So the customer buys this much stock, the customer comes out, what's that going to do to the budget? Question was then asked before the meeting was, okay, how do we keep this customer? And they were thinking, well, it's based on price. So if we offer that 10% reduction in price for that product, what does that do? So 3 scenarios. You have your baseline if you lose that customer, and then your scenario 3 then, which is your, okay, if we take a 10% reduction in total cost of that product, what does that do to our margin of that product? What does it do to our overall budget for the product? And gives that overview to the executive team to then make a decision in the S&OP meeting. So then they selected, okay, well, yes, we'll take that 10% hit, but keep that customer. But we know now all the numbers are aligned, and turn that scenario into the working plan within the solution. So then it readjusts your numbers aligned to your budgets.
Magic. Can't beat it. Okay, great. So I think now that I've just got the slides back up, so I think it's back with you now to talk a little bit about signals and foresight.
Yeah, so it's really interesting actually, because I'm looking at the poll, right, and there is 0% around AI-driven analytics and insights in regards to what is your biggest improve on your planning cycle. Right now, I get it; it might not improve your planning cycle, but this one element of AI really appeals. It really excites me in a way, because this is a solution, what we call board foresight and signals. And I know you're thinking, you've seen all these AI demos. Usually it's a sort of like a black box statistical model. You feed it sales history and it spits out a number. Nobody really knows why. And it goes through that, that slog of, okay, well, do I trust it? Do I not trust it, etc. And this is really not what this is. Frankly, this part gets me excited because it's a different take on what a lot of people see. And this is a unique selling point. It's the only solution that has this ability. And what it is, it's a correlation engine, right? This AI scans the outside world and 5 million different data sets, and growing, aligns it with an economist, and then builds a correlation engine for your business. So it looks at external data trends and aligns them to your internal reality. Now, why does this matter? Well, because of supply chain lag. Now, supply chain lag is, we often forget that a change in the global market might not hit your P&L for months and months. You don't know. Okay. Now, the shock waves, it takes time to travel up through your business, and through your different tiers of supply chain. Now, to give you a real world example on that one, imagine the price of crude oil. So it spikes today, but you might not buy oil. You buy plastic housing for your widgets, and your supplier has a contract with you. So really, your price stays the same for now. But that oil becomes resin. That resin gets shipped to your supplier. Your supplier eventually works through their old inventory and has to sort of buy the new expensive new resin. Therefore, suddenly, 3 months later, the supplier passes that cost on to you. Now, you get hit with a 15% price increase, ruins your margin, and you never saw it coming. Now, board foresight, the way that it correlates that is based on the data sets, and it creates tailwinds and headwinds. It allows you to see that. It does see it coming. So in a sense, it acts like that crystal ball. It starts building these correlation engines of things that are changing in the market, aligns that with similar trends to what your sales and your supplier pricing or whatever you want to link this data set up to. And it spots that correlation. For example, in this case, the oil index today and your component cost in 90 days, it flags that as a risk before it happens. So when things then change, you're given it, I guess, foresight into when it's actually going to impact you. So it allows you to make, again, proactive decisions in your business to make sure that you know that it's coming down the pipeline. So do you know what? You could maybe increase your prices sooner to mitigate that cost impact, or maybe look at other avenues of negotiating a better price before it actually hits you. So essentially, it gives you that crystal ball. The crystal ball is obviously based on facts. It's not magic. And yeah, that's really all I want to touch upon on this one at the moment, because obviously we've got limited time. But again, we can explore this further with anyone who reaches out. We can explore how this could potentially, improve or impact your business, and how we can get those insights fed into you. Again, on the aspect of time, pretty much what I've just discussed there, just the flow of how that AI then reflects in regards to data discovery, prediction, and then protection for your business. So that's the complete flow for predictive AI planning, away from statistical models. Okay, and then over to you, Jess.
Yeah, and it's just an example of a dashboard which can be created then to link that foresighted signals in with a supply chain solution. So high level there, we can see what the foresight forecast is versus our consensus forecast versus our budget. So we can track that. And then also at the bottom of the screen, we can see exactly what components have influenced that board foresight forecast, and essentially what foresight is linking to our demand. So yeah, it's really interesting stuff from a demand planning manager who implemented statistical models and had worked in a business where macroeconomic factors were huge in influencing our demand, which is always fun to forecast. Yeah, it's really interesting stuff, I think, to have this.
Okay, that takes us sort of to the end then. So really, it's how do we then, as obviously this webinar then is how do we link this technology and help? How do we support businesses? So it's really, again, back to the point of how does BIOS, we as a business deliver that value? And again, we'll go back to that main question. We try to implement that technology with your business and boost and bring to realization productivity versus the reactivity that you face today. So yeah, thanks for sitting through our first webinar on this topic, and we've had quite a lot of answers coming in for these polls. So we'll ensure that a lot of this gets sent out on email to make sure that you're all kept aware of what's going on, and the answers of these polls. I think we're out of time for questions, but what we can do is we can leave this webinar open just to answer some of the questions you might have. But what we'll also do is compile a list of the questions anonymously, answer those, and obviously send those out as well to you guys to understand what questions are coming in and how a solution like this and how we can support those moving forward. So just over to Annie to close up.
Perfect. Thank you both very much. Me personally, I always find it really insightful whenever you hear people coming in from industry and actually talking about these things. So I hope that that was as useful for everybody as it was for me. But like Dale said, unfortunately, we don't have time left over for questions, but we'll be sure to answer anything and everything you guys have asked and email it back to you. So as mentioned earlier, I'm not sure I actually mentioned this, but if you had any questions on anything IBP specifically, I know both Jess and Dale have mentioned this. We do have a very new white paper that went out a few weeks ago. So please do scan the QR code and have a look at that if you're interested. And just to close off as well, if you have any specific questions that you want to reach out to us for, you're more than welcome to. And like I said, we'll get back to you on any questions that you have already asked. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But before you guys leave, you'll see a pop-up coming out right now on your left. That's a feedback form. So we'd be really grateful if you could please answer a couple of questions, take a couple of minutes just to have a look, have a think, see what you found helpful, see what you'd like to see in the future and what we could perhaps improve on. And yeah, on that note, we wish you a great evening. And also Christmas is coming up really soon. So I hope everyone has a lovely Christmas with their families. And yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
Great. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for your time. And connect on LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect and chat as well. We're always open for a chat.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.